Hello, I'm Chad Moutre, the Chief Economist at the National Restaurant Association. Today, I want to highlight three key economic trends that we're following on April 2025 that are shaping the outlook for the restaurant and food service industry. First, some recent economic data have been pretty encouraging, although one could quickly take that as a snapshot in time. Sales and employment rebounded in March following really weak February numbers. In fact, retail sales for restaurants were up 1.8% in the month of March, while the industry added 29,800 workers. Yet, despite this improvement, overall the sector lost 25,500 workers for the overall quarter, marking the worst quarter since late 2020. We also saw a reprieve in inflation. Both consumer and producer prices were lower in March. However, menu prices increased pretty solidly, up 0.4% for the second straight month, and wholesale food costs continue to be pretty elevated, up 6.6% on a year-over-year basis. In fact, costs continue to be something that I hear about from operators all the time, with labor costs up 35% since the pandemic and wholesale food costs up 37%. Importantly, of course, I think to keep all of this in perspective, almost all of the data for March really predate any of the latest tariff news. And so, in many ways, that is a snapshot, as I said earlier, in time. Since then, consumers, businesses, and financial markets have continued to be increasingly anxious. That brings us to our second trend, declining sentiment. Both consumer and business confidence have fallen significantly year to date, driven by policy shifts that have been pretty rapid and the looming threat of higher tariffs. In fact, the National Restaurant Association's Restaurant Performance Index was essentially unchanged in March. It was up 0.1%, but it remained well below 100, which is the threshold for industry expansion. And this level continues to be one of the weakest readings we've seen since last fall. In our latest tracking survey, 35% of operators said that they expect sales to soften over the next 6 months. That's the highest share since August, while just 22% reported a more optimistic view in their outlook, which is the lowest since the pandemic. And that, of course, then brings us to the third trend. Economic outlook remains pretty murky. Facing the prospect of higher tariffs, both consumers and businesses have pulled forward their purchases, contributing to a surge in imports earlier this year, record high trade deficit, but overall spending has softened. As a result, real GDP growth came in weaker in the first quarter. Even so, the U.S. economy continues to show some surprising resilience. In fact, I would argue, given the opportunity, the U.S. economy really wants to grow, and you see that resilience all over the place. And never underestimate the strength of the American consumer. We continue to see strong underlying pent-up demand, with many wanting to dine out more than they currently do. In our recent State of the Industry report, which we released earlier this year, we predicted $1.5 trillion in sales over this year, and we still expect such growth, despite all of the challenges that we've seen. As always, we'll continue to follow the data very closely, keeping you abreast of whatever's happening and adjusting our outlook as needed. Thanks for your time, and remember, you can always follow our latest economic insights at restaurant.org and on our social media channels. Have a good day.